Ken, if you're watching this.
And I used it wrong, you can let me know.
Yeah. Sorry if this isn't exactly what you were intending on, but I think it's cool that I'm glad you were here. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. I'm here today with a special guest, Ryan from Two Feathers Productions.
What's up, dude?
He's out here in Colorado, and I just so happened to get this package like just the other day. I'm finally allowed to talk about it. If you caught my last video, I opened this on a mail time video and then realized you guys couldn't see it yet. But what we have here today is a whole new sharpening system from WorkSharp Sharpeners, and I have experience with a lot of their like hand sharpening tools in the past. I'm sure you've seen them all around. You probably used them. This one, however, I have zero experience with, and I've never used an electric sharpener before. So this is going to be kind of like a knife guy banter between Ryan and I. We're going to kind of go over this thing, talk about it, and there's actually some pretty cool attachments and different features with it. So this is going to be a learning experience for us, and Ryan has the knife making expertise behind him. So take what I say with a grain of salt. You can trust him probably a little bit more.
We'll try.
We're gonna try. So let's take a look at this thing. So here in front of us we have the all-new Ken Onion Edition Elite Mark II knife and tool sharpener. This is kind of like a three-piece system. We have the motor itself with a new ergonomic handle, different speed controls, and some different features on there. We have the sharpener attachment currently attached to it, but they also have a blade grinding attachment. So this is why I'm glad Ryan is here, because he uses like a professional version of one of these in your shop.
Yeah, a large TW90, so way different, but
similar kind of, maybe. We'll stretch it a little bit. And Ryan, of course, makes all of the collab blades that you guys have seen me talk about. This is the one that started it all right here.
Yeah,
the workhorse. If you guys haven't seen what Ryan does, I'll leave some links to other videos that we've done together up in the cards, but let's dive into this thing. Now, I've already got this entire system unboxed, and this is what you're going to expect with a kit like this. They are going to be available May 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Pretty sure that's right.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. So here we have the motor attachment, the sharpening, and then the actual grinder over here with different belts for each of them. And then this larger belt over here is for this attachment, and they actually have kind of like a cloth, what is this called? A cloth belt?
Cloth belt, yeah, so like buffing, you've got a buffing compound, so more of a honing.
To like really finish out the blade. And some compound, which you use something similar when you're building your own knives.
Right.
So I'm gonna jump into this thing by trying to put maybe a better edge on this actual WorkSharp Benchmade bug out here. This is a limited edition. I've had this thing for a little while, and I have so many bug outs in my collection that I don't know if I've really ever cut anything with this, but we've got just some standard paper here. We'll do a paper test, and then I will try my best to learn how to use this thing and put a decent edge on it. I'm gonna bring you guys in a little bit closer. So factory edge, it's kind of tearing a little bit, not super hair popping sharp. I'm trying to pop some hairs and it's not quite. Not really.
No, it just kind of pushes out of the way.
It's not quite there.
Yeah, no. I was trying early. Just wants to fall over.
Yeah, so not the best factory edge. So let's move some of this stuff out of the way and get down to business.
It comes with different grits of belt, so I would start medium for this.
Yeah.
We'll go fine and see what it looks like after that.
So we have coarse belts and then all the way down to this like micro kind of fine belt here. And since this isn't the worst edge ever, we're just gonna try to set the angle on this thing to probably around 20 degrees. And then I'll just do a couple passes and see how we can get this thing sharper. So with this sharpener in its stored position, there's a little kind of a release clip on the back side. You can push that and kind of swing it up into place. It's also used for sharpening axes and different things like that, so you can actually change the angle of this and kind of use it freehand like a grinding wheel. You just pop these guards off and then you could sharpen an axe. You could sharpen the Ignite with something like this, I guess, if you wanted to.
You could try.
So when you're going to sharpen the knife, you have it set and locked at this position here. On the top of the unit, this is where you will find the degree adjustment. Again, I'm probably going to shoot for a 20 degree on this, which might be changing the angle a little bit, but with this grit, we should be able to put a nice edge on there. Now I don't have experience with the first version of this, but I guess some of this stuff has changed. The handle does feel nice, and again, haven't felt the first one, but we have an on-off power button right here, and then you will notice there are 7 amber lights here so you can adjust the speed of this unit. I believe WorkSharp is recommending for just kind of putting a better edge on a knife between 1 and 3, so let's start at 2 for this.
Sounds good.
And then also at the top here, this is a button that you can press which will actually keep this thing running, which may not be super beneficial for the sharpening aspect of things.
I wouldn't use it for sharpening, but if you were doing like an axe like we were talking about.
Yeah, you could just kind of turn it on.
Yeah.
Rather than holding the trigger down the whole time. That will come in handy though when we switch over to this thing. So, now the way they recommend doing this is putting the blade as far into the guide as you can. Of course you want to keep in mind like your thumb studs and everything there. These guides have a new design, so thumb studs are actually accommodated here, which is nice. You can sharpen a wide variety of things with this unit, at least that's what it seems like. So you want to start with the blade actually in the guide and touching the belt. I'm going to pull the trigger to activate it. I will pull it all the way through out to the tip without pulling it completely out, and then I will let go of the trigger to turn it off. So whenever the belt is in contact with the blade, it's going to be running, and then before I pull it off, I'm going to stop the belt. So I'm just going to do a couple passes here until I can maybe feel a burr. This is 20 CV steel. So like, it's honestly not changing much.
Well,
I could get like a cheaper knife, but just for demonstration purposes, we're gonna go with this. So I'm gonna do maybe 2 more passes on this side. It's hard to tell. Might be like a tiny bit of a burr on there.
It's really hard to tell.
It's really hard to tell.
Well, that's kind of neat to see though. If you look in the light, I don't know if you'd be able to catch it on camera, but the tip still has their machine marks and the rest doesn't.
Oh, well then it's reprofiling it.
Yeah.
I guess. So I'm gonna keep going actually until it all looks uniform. Yeah, there's no way the camera's picking that up, but we'll just keep going and see if that goes away. Oh yeah, it's getting there. Okay.
Yeah, so like the tip stopping right in the middle of the belt when you're going is probably going to be your best bet. So you don't see the tip too much.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, we definitely reprofiled the edge.
And it is pretty uniform too, which is nice.
Right.
I feel like I was always afraid to use these because, I mean, if you really don't know what you're doing, you could mess up a blade pretty quickly, but with all these safeguards built in here, it seems like it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of nice that you could just pick an angle that you like best. So
Yeah.
if you have a knife that works off of, you know it works off of 25, you could set all your blades to 25, or that's kind of nice.
I'm gonna run this through the other side now just a few times to get rid of the factory marks on there. Actually, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm not surprised that this thing works. I'm surprised that I'm able to do this right now. So again, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go up to the next belt now. There's a lock right here, which is basically just like a guide, so you can pop that off. And then on the back side, there's a tensioner, which you will lift up and it'll kind of click into place. Then you can simply slide the belt off. We're gonna go up to the next belt. This is 4X Fine. Slide that over, put the guide back, hit this red button over here, and then that puts tension back on the belt. I mean, it looks nice actually.
Yeah, I mean, basically all the machine marks are gone.
So it's definitely doing something. Again, the knife wasn't terribly dull, but
No.
so now I'll lift the tensioner again, pull the guide out of the way. Little baby belt.
Which on this blade's probably not going to do much right now,
Right.
but you can at least see how they work.
Looks pretty decent for just learning how to do
Yeah,
this and
no,
doing
it
it
does.
quickly. Now I'm curious if it will cut any better. Super unscientific cut test. Yeah. think there's a little bit of an improvement there. It's not tearing like it was originally. It's still not hair popping sharp because I only spent like 2 minutes on it, but I'd say that's a little bit better. So that's a brief idea of the sharpening aspect of this thing. What do you think?
I think it's good for, like, if you don't want to take the time to learn how to hand stone or send your blades out to get sharpened, like, you can create your own thing and work with it. Like, it's solid.
And there's a lot of like fail-safe things in here, so it would actually kind of be hard to mess up your blade. You got the guides, you got your angle set and everything.
Yeah. The only thing I could see you doing is rolling your tip as you're pulling that through until you get the feel for like not passing past, like, you definitely don't want to go to the edge of the belt when you're pulling that through.
Because you're sharpening knives that you make basically by hand. You basically have a belt that's tensioned and you have the feel for it.
Right, so I'm setting my own angle the way I hold the blade and drag it across the belt.
I think it's pretty cool. I would definitely want to use this a little bit more. And I actually have my favorite kitchen knife ever right here, the Benchmade Station. I've used this thing for, I think it's like well over a year now. I cook with it all the time. I show everyone who comes over to the house, I'm like, this is such a cool kitchen knife. Haven't sharpened it, and I'm gonna try to put an edge on this a little bit later. So while you're here, let's talk about this attachment, because I personally wouldn't even want to attempt to try something like this, but with this system, it might be kind of easier than just like a big machine. So let's talk about how we actually get this thing off here. First thing you want to do is lift that tensioner, that way there's no tension on the belt, and then you'll simply rotate it forward until essentially it just kind of pops off. Right like that. Now in the blade grinding attachment, there is a little knob right here, which is actually to keep the belt in line. So this is using the motor from the actual unit itself. You can simply left hand thread this in here. Just about finger tight should be good. And now on this unit, this is how you can actually change the tension of the belt as well as changing the angle. So I think I'm just gonna pull this tight like that. It would probably be good to do this without a belt.
I would probably do it without the belt, just because you won't have to fight it as much.
Right. So now, put that through at about a 90-degree angle to the handle there, and then rotate it down. Of course, this is going to be sitting flat on your workstation. Now I can grab a belt. I'm gonna start it on the bottom, pull some of the tension off of that wheel. Oh, I can actually lock that down too. That's nice. So you can actually fully make sure it's around that tension guide and then snap that back into place. Actually feels pretty good already. We'll put power back onto this unit now and turn it down. I'm going to run it just briefly so we can get the tracking centered on the belt. And right now it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit to the right. So right about there looks nice and centered. Now we're ready to build a whole knife from scratch.
There we go.
All right, so now we got this thing in the grinding attachment mode. This stuff is super new to me other than watching you at your shop creating blades. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of looks familiar to me, like how you grind bevels and how you sharpen your blades. You're doing it with what, a slack method? Is that what it's called?
Well, some of it would be. So like this is a slack belt, and then you can have tension up here for not as much of a slack.
So more for sharpening up here.
Yeah. And then you could set this different ways for more of a convex. And down here, just like I do chamfers or rounding a handle, is where you could get all your slack and do here. You're going to take your time. You're not really going to mess it up too bad because it's not going too fast. So.
Yeah. So essentially, I guess the different ways that you can use this, you can do a lot of the processes that a professional knife maker does, like Ryan, but in like a smaller form factor. I would say I doubt you're going to make something like this, but you can kind of touch things up. So with the slack belt here, you can kind of round out these handles if you wanted a different contour. And then up here you can sharpen. There's actually a wheel in the position here When it's all the way up here, the distance between these two wheels is obviously going to be a lot smaller, so that's going to give you, I guess, more tension up there.
Right, so you're getting more of that flat grind instead of any convex to it.
And then as you pop this wheel down a little bit and then add tension again, you're gonna have more slack all the way down to the bottom. That's where you may end up just turning this on, continuous grind, and then kind of like sharpen the edge of an axe.
Sure.
Which I could see it actually being pretty good for that. I want to let you play with this one because there's like a lot of stuff going on here. So we're gonna put this up to the fine. You could even like put a different edge on this blade, I guess. We're gonna add tension to it, and then in the front here is an angle adjustment knob. Now, when it comes to angles, you do this by feel again. So if I had to guess, I actually did put a kind of a new edge on here. I'm gonna guess and say, I'm gonna go above 20, I think. Because this is like hard use knife.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use it for everything. Let's do, I don't know, you wanna do 25?
You could.
It really doesn't matter.
It's not gonna matter really for this. Like if you wanna sharpen on this, more so you're gonna be dragging the belt or the blade across the belt.
Yeah.
So you could set whatever, like you don't wanna be up here cutting through your belt, but you can set whatever angle you would want. I think the slack and the degrees is more for how much this is angled.
It almost seems like this is more of a tension thing than anything, because they do have a reference plate on here, so if you wanted to get a similar angle, so say I set this to 25 degrees. If the spine of the blade is flat on here and my hands are super precise, when I come up here, that will be about a 25 degree.
Yeah.
But then again, you could set this at any angle, and someone who's skilled like you're gonna sit there and just use your precision to make it uniform across the whole blade.
Yep.
So
now what I do like about this thing though is you get to make your own modifications to your blades. So like we can grind the spine. That this has machine marks based on how I used to make blades.
yeah.
And that you could like buff some of those out, or we could shine like through the different belts. We could end up making it like polished almost.
You can do a lot of different stuff with it, yeah. So on this backside here, this is a 90-degree reference plate, and this is also adjustable too. So there's a little set screw over here. You can raise that and lower that. And I've watched you in your shop using plates similar to this, but you can also alter the angle.
Right.
If you're crowning the back of a knife or whatever it may be. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The other fun part about being able to raise this, like sitting here thinking about it, is we can come up to the wheel, and you're not going to use like your edge on that, but you can create all different chamfers on your handles.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
handle scales off and create whatever you want there. Or we can create almost like a swedge if you would want.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
Like you get to create all kinds of stuff because you're grinding on plastic plus the belt, so it's gonna give a little bit.
I would be very curious to see, like, if I put this in your hands at your shop where you have your tempering things and you have your own steel and stuff. I'm curious, like, if you were just limited to this, what kind of knife you could make.
You know what would be fun is to make a little thing off of this.
The,
You know what I
your
mean?
little bits
Yeah,
knife?
the little guys, like
Yeah.
they could just be a.
I might have to send this back to the shop with you, just because
Just to make one?
Yeah, I think it would be funny. So I want to see you kind of do your thing. I mean, this was one of the first knives you made me 3 years ago now, but I want to see you just kind of like mess around with this thing and kind of pick your brain on like how you're setting it up, the different speeds that you're using. When you pull the trigger now, tap the button, you got continuous.
Yep.
So it's like a mini version of Two Feather Shop right here in your hands.
Right.
I'll let you take it away now.
See if we can polish the. Well, not polish. I don't want to polish it, but let's see if we can remove some of the. Actually, it probably won't because it's going in the wrong direction. It's just going to create. Let's try it.
You're working with a knife that you have already made yourself, and you've hardened this thing, so you know how freaking hard the steel is.
That's what I'm sitting here thinking about. But so basically, this is going to create the same grooves
Because they're
because
vertical.
it's going the same direction. But I wonder if we can take some of them away and make it less.
So now you have a pretty coarse belt on there. You got the tension set and everything.
Yep, so we got the coarsest belt that they sent. Let's see what kind of damage we can do to the spine. Alright, so we're actually taking some of the marks away. Definitely the ferric.
It's doing something.
Yeah.
You could up the speed too if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah. It's definitely taking them off.
Now we're going on. Oh, fart.
All right, so just sitting here thinking about this while we're playing with it. So these are tempered. This is hard 5160 steel. If you had mild steel, like now I do want to do that. I want to make a little thing with this because I think it'll be a ton of fun.
If this was mild steel, you would actually be grinding that.
We could, I mean, it's gonna take a while to do, but I could bump the speed up more and actually profile kind of a blade. And I think a little thing made with this will be entertaining.
I think that would be super cool.
But we definitely have more of a 90-degree. This will throw crazy sparks with a ferro rod if you would want.
And now if you wanted to take that off, because it's almost like sharp, it's a sharp 90 degree, you could use the slack
use the other side, right. Yeah, now we just rounded the corners.
That's so cool. It's so cool because I've watched you do this in your shop, and now we're doing it in my studio, which is like...
It just feels really funny to be working around.
You feel like a giant.
Yeah, I do. I feel like a giant. Yeah, you could take the scales off and really mess around with this and have fun. Like, let's leave the scales on.
I'm gonna bring that...
And we're just gonna do spine and see what the platform does.
Oh yeah.
So you could, in theory, take all of your scratches away. It's definitely something that if you were interested and didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money, you could start playing around with things and then still be able to sharpen your knives.
All right, so some final thoughts time here. It was really cool to watch you use this because
it's fun.
Miniature knife shop kind of. If, like you said, if someone wants to learn, which I've learned on your tools a little bit at your shop when we came out with the warning, and it's a big learning experience. So jumping into this for me, it's not like too frightening. Like I know kind of how I can set this thing up now if I wanted to reprofile and round things out and touch things up on really any knife for that matter.
And then you're getting like freehand experience on something that's not like gonna rip everything out of your hands and
it's not gonna cause too much damage.
Right.
Now I know you mentioned earlier that you typically have the belt running towards you. This is running away from you.
Right.
Which is probably a safety thing.
Most likely
about it, but
a lot of people sharpen that way though. It's just my belt only runs one way, so that's how you had to do it, you know?
Yeah. I think it would be cool too, which maybe they have thought about this already, but to make kind of like an angle to it, because you run your belt both ways when you're building a full knife.
Yeah.
This is great for doing a lot of different things, but a little bit limiting if you want the belt running, I guess, horizontal instead of vertical.
I wonder how they... Well,
I mean, you could
you could build a platform for it.
Yeah, that's another thing to note, that you can actually clamp this thing down to a desk or like a workbench in your garage. So you could kind of make it like a fixture.
You could.
Which is cool. I mean, all in a small little package like this with everything included. You would definitely want to get more belts if you're going to use it the way you do.
Right.
Just high speed, just going at it, like you know what you're doing. I think these would last me a while though. If I'm just messing around, working on, not really knife making, but like knife honing and changing different things about.
Yeah, if you were just like taking corners off and, I mean, if you would start messing with the handle materials, it's gonna gunk up real fast. You'd need belts, but.
I mean, we've already got metal shavings all over the desk. I saw some sparks flying and stuff. Yeah, pretty cool product. The only thing that I did mention is that I believe the first like 450 of these units, which is the Ken Onion exclusive, they're actually signed by him. So on the front of this grinder here, Worksharp actually put my name on it, and Ken Onion like engraved his signature in there. So I've actually met Ken in person before at Blade Show in Atlanta, like years ago. Cool dude to talk to. I've owned some of his knives, and yeah, it's cool to see him coming out with stuff like this. Ken, if you're watching this
and I use it wrong, you can let me know.
Yeah. Sorry if this isn't exactly what you were intending on, but I think it's cool that I'm glad you were here. Knife maker buddy here who can kind of talk about more real life experience.
Yeah.
Doing this stuff with a product that is for consumers like me. So
again, we kind of need to make one of the little blades off of this.
I think we should. I'm gonna have to come out to Pennsylvania to film that.
Yeah.
You could totally do it, but I want to be there to document it because that would be rad. Well, cool, dude. Thanks for checking this out with me. If you guys have any questions on this thing, let me know in the comments down below. Again, I'm not a professional on this. They are available soon. They're going to be in all the other stores. Like you can find these on Amazon's later, probably in around June, maybe June 1st. So stay tuned for that stuff and let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Ryan has some blades available right now.
We do. Yeah.
Over on his website. I believe as we're filming this.
There's collabs, so we have 1/4 inch mini tacks.
Yep.
And the 3/16 mini workhorse.
Speaking of that, we got some right there.
We do.
That's a 1/4 inch. Oh no,
There's
this
your
is
3/6. Now this is first versions. They look way different.
They
now.
do look way different. But this was one of the original 3/16 mini workhorses that we made together. As you can tell, well loved. It's not rust on there, that's just the ferric and from like cutting acidic things with this.
Yeah, patina. And then the
Patina.
mini tacks on your desk.
3/16 mini tack too. So as of right now, these things are available on his website, twofeathersproductions.com. I'll leave a link for that in the description down below. And if you want to see Ryan doing this for real in his own shop, you can follow him on Instagram. Check him out there. And I think it's time for us to design a new blade.
That sounds good to me.
We'll do that with the rest of the day. That's all. If you guys are new to the channel, consider clicking subscribe. And I guess we'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.